protecting the police every single day.
St. Petersburg, Florida, at the center of an FBI investigation. The U.S. Department of Justice is looking into the Russian government's alleged interference in U.S. politics, including right here in our Bay Area. Last week, the FBI raided the Uhurus house, home to the African People's Socialist Party. The group has been a fixture in St. Pete for decades. Well, today, 10 Tampa Bay's Liz Crawford met with members of the group. They say the feds are after their movement and what they stand for, and it has nothing to do with Russia.
A formal news conference on their terms in their building and a chance to tell their side of the story.
They say it's about this thing with Russia, but it's not about this thing with Russia.
According to the indictment, leaders with the African People's Socialist Party are accused of coordinating with Russian government officials over the last 8 years. Last week, FBI agents took over the Uhurus house located in South St. Pete. So far, no one with the organization has outright denied the allegations.
We are not speaking to the issues within the indictment because we know that, first of all, it's illegitimate.
Thursday, Uhurus members showed reporters property damage they say was caused by the feds. Broken glass, torn up wood. We saw similar damage upstairs. Leaders said doors were busted when FBI agents raided the building.
They're trying to put together this case that is not there against our party, against our movement, and against the black community.
A former FBI special agent in charge told 10 Tampa Bay the Russians look for groups willing to spread their message.
They don't really care what party is in power, what political party is in power here. This is all about weakening the United States, whether, it's pitting Democrats against Republicans or rich against poor, or workers against management. It doesn't matter.
Preying on the United States through divided states of mind.
Literally trying to undermine the confidence, the trust, the unity that exists in the nation. And they'll do it in a lot of different ways. And this example is just one of the many ways in which they will do that.
Liz Crawford, 10 Tampa Bay.
And because of the ongoing investigation here, the FBI did decline to comment on the statements made today by Uhurus leaders.
Uhuru, my name is TYRANNY, and I'm the Director of Agitation and Propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party. I want to appreciate the media for uniting to be a part of this press conference that we're having right now at the St. Petersburg Police Department headquarters, where they just finalized their press conference, which we were not allowed to be a part of. I guess public presence was not allowed to participate in this press conference. Neither were questions from the media. But we're here because we want to explain what this is about, what the FBI, what the police have stated as the basis for this so-called investigation. We want to clarify several things. One, that what happened this morning when my car and my personal property was seized from my possession, when they attacked Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela in St. Louis, Missouri, where our current headquarters is for the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, when they broke into their homes and they handcuffed our leadership, when they went into the Uhuru house here in St. Petersburg, Florida, without issuing a search warrant, when they broke down the doors. So we want to say that they are characterizing this as some kind of investigation into our affiliation with Russian foreign governments and things like that. But one, I think that this exposes the crisis that the U.S. imperialism is in. Because the U.S. and other world colonial powers have been collaborating against Russia for early into the early 1900s. And this is a consequence right now in 2022 that we see the same attack against Russia. And right now, this war with Ukraine, this defensive war in Ukraine that Russia is actually waging against world colonial powers, not Ukraine as a single entity, but the U.S. and all colonial powers who have an interest in colonially dominating African people right here in this country and around the world and extracting resources from the majority of peoples on the planet. That system, this current system, is in severe crisis, and they cannot rule in the same old way. So that's what we understand, one, about the U.S. government. And the ruling class itself states that imperialism is on the decline. U.S. power is it's not cyclical, but it is permanent. So that's number one. Number two, the African People's Socialist Party is an organization that has been here for 50 years. It is an international organization that not organizes just here in St. Petersburg, Florida, but right there in St. Louis, Missouri, in Oakland, California, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and all throughout the U.S., in Africa, in Europe. And the history of the African People's Socialist Party is to unite with any forces that unite with the anti-colonial struggle. And we feel that is a just struggle. We feel that every colonized African who is gunned down in the city of St. Pete or anywhere else in this country, like George Floyd or like Mike Brown, we feel that our response is to fight against that relationship. Our responsibility is to fight against our oppression and our domination. And that means organizing a revolutionary capacity to make that possible. And that means that we unite with any force because we understand that colonialism is a global system and that it has interests everywhere throughout the world. Everywhere that they are talking about we have a relationship with, the U.S. is there right now plundering people's resources. But they are not under investigation. Just a few weeks ago, the Uhuru house was attacked in broad daylight, where an arsonist came to the Uhuru house and burned down and attempted to burn our red, black, and green flag that waves at our offices down. There was no FBI investigation into that person who tried to burn down our flag. There was no response from the FBI and the St. Pete Police Department to respond to this attack that came against our Uhuru house. And we also understand that that's not a coincidence, that the only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. The institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers, that was the building that has come under attack. And in St. Louis, where we have incredible economic projects that have transformed the conditions of our community. Not the U.S. government, no politician ever did that for our community, but it was us, the Uhuru movement, that made that possible. And today, this process is disrupting a meeting that we're supposed to have around initiating a project, the African Women Doula Project, that can make it possible for African women to deliver babies safely in our community. This process is interrupting that as I speak. And what this is a propaganda campaign against Russia. In that press conference where I have my ear pressed to the door, they are talking about interference in local elections and social media. No, I'll tell you, it's Mark Zuckerberg that interferes with the ability for people to communicate with one another and express their genuine interests. That's who was at the security conference for the U.S. government. It's Mark Zuckerberg who's responsible for that. And the U.S. is attempting to explain its own contradictions with Russia because it cannot rule in the same old way. It does not have the unity of its entire population. That's what Trump represented. And they say it was Russia intervention in the elections. They say it's an undemocratic process. What does the U.S. know about genuine democracy when it takes the ability for African people to feed, clothe, and house ourselves on a daily basis? You want to talk about destabilization? Talk to Nicaragua, talk to Venezuela, talk to Cuba, talk to Russia, and ask about undemocratic processes. That's what we're engaged in right now. And they are attempting to attack this organization. They are attempting to isolate the Black Power movement. That's what they are attempting to do. And we can have relationships with whoever we want, whoever we see fit possible to make this revolution possible. We will have a relationship with them.
It sounds like you're not denying working with Mr. Ivanov and the Russian government. You're not denying that?
Look, they're raiding our properties as we speak. Whatever you want to know, they'll let you know what we have and what we have not done. But I will say this, that we unite with any force that is willing to unite in our anti-colonial struggle. And that part is clear. We will not refuse to engage with others around the world who want to see this system go. We will not refuse that. That's what I'll say about that.
If you are working with the Russian government, were you not concerned at all that
the U.S. is working with every colonial government in the world, and nobody is saying a damn thing about what the U.S. is doing in Africa. What they don't raid the homes and ask white people any questions after they come back from Israel, where they're murdering Palestinian people every single day. They don't flash bomb their homes. They don't send the police there, even though they went into international waters in a place where they are killing Palestinians on a daily basis. Nobody is asking them any questions about their affiliation. The U.S. is affiliated with all the undemocratic forces around the world attempting to oppress African and other colonized people.
Why not register as a foreign agent?
Why would we register as a foreign agent? We recognize that this is an illegitimate settler colony, that the only foreigners here are Europeans themselves who came here and stole this indigenous land at gunpoint. That's who needs to register as a foreign alien or whatever. It's the U.S. government.
Are you unindicted co-conspirator number 4?
What does it state? Because they didn't give us any of that paperwork.
So you know.
You want to know my name? Because I can tell you.
Co-conspirator 4 Moore, whose identity is known to the grand jury, was a United States citizen residing in St. Petersburg and the director of agitation and propaganda.
I stated my name is Akile. I'm the director of agitation and propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party. I ran for office in 2017 and 2019 on a platform of reparations, the first time that was ever done in this country. Under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. It was the African People's Socialist Party that did that campaign. It was African. See my public records and the donors that came through that we have to report publicly. See that? See, check our public records. You want to be a part of the state's investigation? You check their public records and see what resources we accepted.
Yes or no? Did you accept Russian money as part of your campaign?
You are trying to make this discussion about something that it is not. You want to know what this real problem is about? If you are genuinely interested to know what this situation is about, not live in fancy land about whether or not I accepted money from Russians, this is real. Not the way you want to see it, not the way you want to control the narrative. What I'm talking about right now is that they're using Russia as a part of a propaganda tool against the people to turn you away, to win, first of all, win your unity with the U.S. government. The U.S. government has no ability to answer any of your questions. None. It can't solve any of your problems, and they tell you that it's Russia's fault. Russia is not in your community causing you to starve. Russia is not in your community pushing you out. Russia is not the St. Pete Police Department that killed Tyronn Lewis in 1996. It was not Russia. It was the U.S. government that did that.
Are you concerned about being arrested yourself?
I am not concerned about what the crisis of imperialism and how it will act. No, I'm not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like really late for all this stuff. Because this seems like a lot, right?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right now.
It started 600 years ago.
Yeah. So what exactly is the FBI accusing you guys of?
They are accusing us of this is what they're making it about. And I want to be clear, this is what they're making it about. Because the African People's Socialist Party has been here for 50 years. And this is not the first time we've come under any kind of assault, FBI investigation, or anything like that. This will always be the case as we try to fight for our freedom, because African freedom comes at the expense of U.S. interests. That's just how that goes. And a couple years ago, they labeled Africans who would struggle in their own interests as black identity extremists. They have terrorist designations for people like us who want to fight for our freedom. So I want to make that clear, that this is what they're saying it's about, but they need an entry point to be able to attack our movement, and this is the one that they're using. But they are accusing us of conspiring with the Russian government for, I can't even tell you because it don't really make that much sense. You know what I'm saying? So this is what they are accusing us of conspiring with the Russian government, and for whatever purposes and interests they have not explained, but I guess this comes at the expense of U.S. democracy, which isn't that very democratic.
So what is next for you? Did you get an attorney? What is the next couple of days and weeks look like as they tell us the investigation continues?
Well, we keep with our position, we continue doing what we've always done, which is organize our community towards African revolution. And we organize a response to this, just like we have in this response right now. Just like we're able to put out and define what this struggle is about, that's what we'll continue to do, and we'll continue to organize as necessary around whatever they try to drill down the pipeline. But like I said, this isn't the first time, our first go-around with the FBI. So we are prepared, you know, to take it where it needs to go and to the full length of however long this investigations last. We will organize around it. And that's another thing. You touch me, you touch the African People's Socialist Party, you touch Chairman Amali Eshatella, you touch Deputy Chair Onizine Eshatella, any member of the African People's Socialist Party, you touch a member of the African nation. This is an international organization. We have bases throughout the world. So you don't just touch an individual, you touch an entire organization, and you touch an entire people who are counting on this movement right here to lead us to freedom.
Why work with Russia, who is a known U.S. adversary? Why work with them and be unregistered? Why take their money? Why work with
Did I ever say I took any money? See, no. I never, no. That's what I'm accused of. I never said that, so don't put that in my mouth. I didn't say that.
Did you take money from
Look, I don't want to answer your question because you want to take it somewhere. I don't want to take it there. I've defined this for you. No, I will let them tell it, because that's the people you'll believe. That's the people you'll believe. But you want to ask any question about why we would affiliate ourselves with anybody that is willing to unite with the anti-colonial struggle? That's what your question is, essentially, for us.
Why a U.S. adversary that we've had issues with in the past? Why work with them?
Because I don't identify with you and the U.S. government. I don't identify with that.
Do you hate the government? The US
I detest the U.S. government and what it does to African people on a daily basis. That's what we are here for, because we refuse to allow the system anymore to take the lives of African people. That is a logical thing for me to do.
You do understand what the indictment is about unregistered co-conspirators. I mean, you understand what they're
I understand what they are saying this is about, and I'm telling you what it's about for real, in the real world. Not how not how you want to see the world, but what it actually is. This is happening in the context of Russia at war with Ukraine. This is happening in the context of our building being potentially burned down. This is happening in that context.
Do you think, is Russia, are they the good guys in the war against Ukraine? Do you think, from your perspective, like who's the good guy, who's the bad guy?
Russia, we are in support of Russia, I'll say that. African People's Socialist Party, and that's been public.
Why would you
That's been
support-
public.
I want to understand. I'm asking
You're trying to understand.
Right. Why would you support a larger country invading a sovereign country?
Because you don't know the history. You don't know the history. You don't know the history of Ukraine and Russia. And you don't know that Ukraine is just a cover for the world colonial powers. You don't understand that. That's why we are against world colonial powers. That's what we are against. And if Russia is against world colonial powers, then we support Russia. That's only logical.
The Uhuru movement of hosting a virtual video conference with the Russian national. Can you speak to that?
That is available online at Burning Spear TV on YouTube. That webinar is available. Yes.
You know this guy. You know Alexander.
She just said it. We've had this discussion.
How many people were there when you hosted that?
This was a virtual discussion, so it's virtual.
Will you continue to work with Russia, or at this point, based on this, do you
We
have
will
to, like,
continue to work with any force that supports the anti-colonial African revolution. We'll work with them.
Is it possible they're using you?
The African People's Socialist Party is an organization that's been here for 50 years.
I'm just asking.
Because it's a backwards question. Because it presupposes that African people don't have the capacity to lead and struggle ourselves, but we do. And Chairman Amali Shatella founded this organization over 50 years ago, in which created the capacity for the African working class to determine our own futures. Russia don't determine Africa. Nobody else determines Africa but African people ourselves. And that is an insulting question. The African People's Socialist Party stands on its own and is able to make determinations for itself, which we've been doing for the last 50 years.
So in theory,
Who did you support in the 2020 election?
I didn't in the 2020 election, in the presidential election. Well, there wasn't anybody speaking to my interests, and wasn't nobody saying reparations to African people, nothing. So ain't nobody get my vote.
but in theory, there are groups you would say no to, right?
There are groups we would say no to that would work against the interests of our community and our people in the struggle. Yes, we would say absolutely no. We would say no to the Democratic Party. We would say no to the Republican Party. We would say no to the Green Party. We would say no to these forces that work against or try to maintain this social system. So yeah, we can't say no.
So as of now, I mean, you're listed in the indictment, not your name, but are you, so they have not said you're being charged for anything like that yet?
Nope. Not. We don't even have the indictment. So we have no idea. We have, this is.
Ever cross your mind that this was maybe a bad idea? That this could happen. I mean, when you're talking to Russia.
I think you really got to know history, because when you see the Black Power movement of the 1960s and what happened to the Panthers and what happened to Africans who were organizing during that time, they got gunned down, they were thrown in prison. All these kinds of things happened to our struggle, and I voluntarily joined this struggle, recognizing that this is the history of what this government does to a people that struggles for its freedom. It struggles for true democracy. This is what it does to the people. So no, I did not enter this work being afraid or thinking that this was a bad decision. I follow the leadership of Chairman Amali Shatella and African internationalism, and it does not steer me wrong.
So there's never a concern that again, working with a.
It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter what we do.
And you're not willing to say that you did not take money from them.
I'm not willing to say anything without my lawyer present.
But you may have taken money.
I'm not willing to say anything without my lawyer present. I will not confirm that for you.
What is the status of your chairman? He was arrested today?
No, he was not arrested. He was put in handcuffs, as well as our deputy chairman, Zanaya Shatella. But they were not. Yes, they were released from handcuffs. But their house was broken into. This is St. Louis, where our party is currently headquartered.
Did it used to be headquartered in St. Petersburg?
It did, yes.
Why did it move up to St. Louis?
Because we found a more strategic base right there in St. Louis. So we have, we have a presence all throughout the U.S. and we have leadership in all of these different places. Every region in the U.S. we have leadership, but the most strategic leadership right now is in the center of the U.S., which is St. Louis.
What has the FBI said to you? Have they told you anything? Besides the press conference?
No, they gave me that. No, they didn't tell me about this press conference either. They didn't say nothing to us. We came here, we couldn't even get in the press conference. Had to have our ear to the door to even to know what was being heard. So we haven't heard anything.
Is that concerning to hear that they believe that the federal government believes the Russians were trying to influence elections and essentially on some level take the vote away from from just average citizens? They were trying to put
The
their
U.S.
thumb on
does
the
this
scale?
all the time and intervenes in.
We're not talking about the U.S.
No, that's what I am, though. You want to make it about Russia and think that Russia is the big bad guy that intervenes in local elections or something like that, when the U.S. government has this practice. It's a historic practice where the U.S. government takes elected officials that the people put into office and destabilizes that government and ousts them out. No, it's not. It's directly connected. You want to see it as another story, but it's exactly the same.
I understand your point. I'm not even disputing.
You can't possibly understand my point.
I do. But I guess what I'm saying is they're accusing the Russian government of
Yes.
working.
I understand the propaganda campaign that's being waged against Russia to make Russia the big bad guy, when it's the U.S. government that has had this reign on the entire world for all this time. This is what you want to make it about. Russia's the big bad guy. Russia's the problem. Russia is not in my community doing any of this stuff to me. It's not the reason why me as an African woman is catching hell. It's just not. It's not responsible for that. And that's what we have to make clear. That's what we have to make clear.
Can you spell your name for us too, so we have that correct?
Yes, it's Akile, last name Anai.
And who is the leader again?
Omalia Shatella.
And can you spell that person's name as well?
Omali, last name Yeshietela.
And is to this morning the first you've heard of this? Is like the first time you're hearing about this?
Well, I mean, I was approached this morning at 6 a.m., so that would be the first I've heard about
Yeah,
this.
they didn't give you calls ahead of time or anything.
No, they did not. Actually, they lured me out of my house under false pretenses. They told me my car got broken into. It didn't. They were doing the breaking in, the police and the FBI.
Thank you.
No, they did not search my home.
Good afternoon. St. Petersburg Police Department assisted the FBI serving 3 search warrants in our city. It is an active investigation, but here this afternoon we have Special Agent in charge, Mr. Walker, and U.S. Attorney's Office, Mr. Hansberg, that will give you a brief synopsis of the case in our city. Mr. Hansberg.
Thank you, Chief. On Tuesday, a federal grand jury sitting in Tampa, Florida, returned an indictment charging Russian national Alexander Viktorovich Ionov with conspiring to use several U.S. persons as agents of Russia without prior notification to the Attorney General. As the indictment lays out in great detail, for a period of over 7 years, from December of 2014 continuing through July of this year, Ionov and his Russian government co-conspirators engaged in a malign influence campaign to sow discord, spread propaganda, and interfere in elections within the United States, all of which was orchestrated by the Russian Federal Security Service, known as the FSB. The indictment sets out the objectives of this malign influence campaign. Among the foreign policy objectives of Russian government leadership is to expand Russia's sphere of influence. Russia targets the United States and its allies, as well as other countries, to further that goal. Through these influence operations, Russia attempts to shape foreign perceptions and to influence populations in a number of ways. It seeks to create wedges that reduce trust and confidence in democratic processes. It attempts to weaken U.S. partnerships with European allies, to undermine Western sanctions, to encourage anti-U.S. and anti-Western political views, and to counter efforts to bring Ukraine and other former Soviet states into European and international institutions. To achieve those objectives, Russia influence operations often use social media targeted at U.S. and global audiences to sow discord and mistrust in the United States and other countries' political systems. This social media results in the dissemination of disinformation that is intended to confuse and mislead citizens in the United States, in Europe, and even in Russia itself, as well as to recruit U.S. persons to advance Russia's operational goals. Recruitment is an important and essential part of these efforts. Russia has recruited and forged ties with persons and groups around the world who are positioned to amplify and reinforce Russia's messaging campaigns in furtherance of its goals of destabilizing Western societies. These efforts have included the use of organizations to surreptitiously seek access to people in the United States and elsewhere to advance and promote Russian interests. That is what is alleged to have happened in the case that was unsealed earlier today. Everything that I've just covered is alleged in the indictment that was returned by the Tampa grand jury. The indictment is 24 pages. It details a conspiracy that occurred over the course of 7 years. It sets out over 50 specific acts committed by conspirators in furtherance of the conspiracy. In particular, the indictment sets out several examples of how Ionov, under the supervision of the Russian FSB, directed and controlled the activities of 3 U.S. political groups, including one right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, another in Atlanta, Georgia, and a third in Sacramento, California. Ionov's taskings to these political groups included the filing of petitions with the United Nations, the promotion of separatist and secessionist movements, the funding of protests to create turmoil within the United States, and the publishing of pro-Russia propaganda. 2 further examples of malign foreign influence relate to local elections here in St. Petersburg, Florida. In 2017, Ionov extended an offer of support and assistance to a St. Petersburg candidate for local office, including offering campaign finance. In 2019, Ionov stepped up his efforts to interfere in St. Petersburg, Florida elections, reporting to the FSB that he had been consulting with a candidate every week and that he had personally sent money to the campaign as well as participated in a campaign fundraising event. Ionov provided the FSB with a video of the local candidate delivering a campaign speech, and he reported on the percentage of votes the candidate received for the primary election. In September of 2019, Ionov's FSB handler referred to the candidate's campaign as our election campaign, and Ionov referred to the candidate as the candidate whom we supervise. Ionov and the FSB continue to use these political groups to spread Russian propaganda in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On February 24th of this year, the same day that Russia announced its invasion of the Ukraine, Ionov reached out to leaders of the St. Petersburg group to inform them of the invasion. Ionov later told the FSB that he had asked the St. Petersburg group for assistance in the information war unleashed by the West. On more than one occasion, the St. Petersburg group hosted Ionov via video conference to discuss the invasion in front of an American audience. During these conferences, Ionov spread Russia propaganda, falsely stating that anyone who supported Ukraine also supported Nazism and white supremacy. In March of this year, Ionov used an Atlanta-based group to launch a protest against an American social media company that had placed content restrictions on posts supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Ionov paid for members of that group to travel from Atlanta to San Francisco to protest at the headquarters of that company, where they carried a Russian flag and signs designed by Ionov. Everything that I've just covered is alleged in the indictment, and those are just some of the allegations contained in the indictment. The prosecution of this type of criminal conduct is essential to protecting the American public when foreign governments seek to inject themselves into the American political system. The indictment in this case reflects the excellent work and partnership of several components of the United States Department of Justice. The prosecution team includes prosecutors from the Justice Department's Counterintelligence and Export Control Section and the Public Integrity Section, as well as prosecutors from my office. The investigation is being led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which has conducted a thorough and meticulous investigation. On behalf of the United States Attorney's Office, I want to thank and commend the Counterintelligence and Export Control Section, the Public Integrity Section, and the FBI for their outstanding teamwork and partnership on this investigation. I also want to thank Chief Holloway and the St. Petersburg Police Department. We are honored to have Chief Holloway with us at this press conference today, and thank him and his police department for their help today. But this investigation is not over. It is ongoing. Federal search warrants are being executed today at multiple locations. Once that evidence is collected, the FBI will continue with its investigation and its thorough and meticulous review of the evidence. And my office and the other prosecutors on the case will do what we've already been doing on this case, which is we're going to work with our partners at the FBI to investigate these events and to continue to follow the evidence where it takes us. I'm now going to turn it over to FBI Special Agent in Charge, David Walker, who's going to talk about some law enforcement operations today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start off by thanking U.S. Attorney Handberg and Chief Holloway for their efforts today. DOJ and the City of St. Petersburg Police have been essential partners and cornerstones in this investigation. I'm David Walker. I'm Special Agent in charge of the Tampa Field Office. The FBI is the lead agency responsible for investigating malign foreign influence operations. The facts and circumstances surrounding this indictment are some of the most egregious and blatant violations we've seen by the Russian government in order to destabilize and undermine trust in American democracy. This indictment is just the first of our responses, but it will not be our last, and our investigation is continuing. In furtherance of this current Russian influence investigation, we executed 3 search warrants today in the city of St. Petersburg. Our efforts were not aimed at any specific group, organization, or ideology. The primary purpose of this morning's action was to collect evidence in support of this indictment and future indictments. This is a sensitive ongoing investigation, so we cannot provide any further details about today's operation. The FBI's mission is to protect the American people and uphold the U.S. Constitution. We're also committed to protecting your voice, and we will utilize our resources, our partnerships, and global reach to identify foreign adversaries here in this country trying to create divide, separate this country, and have contempt for democracy. The Russian intelligence threat is continuous and unrelenting. But rest assured, the FBI and our law enforcement partners are equally as relentless in our efforts to expose these criminal campaigns interfering with the safety and security of our nation. Today's action should serve as a deterrent to other foreign adversaries that the FBI will not tolerate meddling in our democratic process. The FBI is prepared to identify and counter malign force influence operations targeting the United States. Thank you.
With that, we'll open for any questions.
Well, I'm sorry, because of the ongoing nature of this investigation, we're not going to be able to take questions now, but we thank you for your interest. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.